The objectives, of course, are to understand what are some of the challenges that these startups face, and we've been talking to a lot of you, we've been speaking to many of the digital ventures who've, gone much beyond being startups into very successful ventures, taken feedback from them. And based on that, we have actually organized this event and, many of the other activities that we're actually doing for startups. So today's event is, a full day event, and it's a very, very, exciting lineup of sessions, which comprise of, strategic advice on growth, hands-on stage demos by people who have actually been working on a lot of digital technologies, and even an innovation workshop in the second half by an internationally renowned innovation expert. And we'll also give, hand-signed certificates of participation to all those who attend the innovation workshop. So it's a well-rounded kind of a, event today, which covers just about, every aspect that we found that, startups, are facing today. Whatever challenges and concerns are there, they're all facing. So it's a very well-rounded event that we have. You will be getting feedback forms soon. They'll be put on your tables. So do fill those up and send them to us because it's the first event. We definitely want to hear your feedback, and so that we can improve the future events, make them better, make them more useful for you. And with that, we'll start. I'll request everyone to put your cell phones in silent mode if you haven't already. And we have the first session, which is the keynote session. We have, the speakers have actually decided to do the session together. Our first keynote speaker, Mr. Saurabh Srivastava, and our third speaker, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, they have decided to take this session together and make it more interactive, for the audience, and kind of engage with all of you in that session. So I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Saurabh Srivastava, our keynote speaker. He's the founder of the Indian Angel Network and recipient of the Padma Shri, the fourth highest civilian honor. He's co-founded and chaired NASSCOM and Indian VC Association and Indian TiE New Delhi and even Indian Angel Network. He's worked with in the US and in India, headed Tata Unisys, and finally becoming an entrepreneur and investor himself. So welcome, Mr. Srivastava. Thank you for being here. Next speaker is Mr. Pradeep Gupta. Fondly we call him PG, the chairman and managing director of Cyber Media India Limited, the South Asia's largest specialty media house, with, of course, brands like PC Quest, Data Quest, Voice and Data, CIOL, Dare, Global Services, whole wide array of media brands that are there. And besides being, heading CMD of Cyber Media, he's also the, co-founder of Indian Angel Network, and he's chaired the chair of Alumni Trust. He's also received the Distinguished Alumni Award from IIT Delhi. And he has also mentored, he's an angel investor who has mentored, I think, more than 150 companies. So I think they have planned something really exciting for all of you today. And without taking much of their time, I'll request them to take over. Welcome, PG.
Good morning. Can we request for these lights to be turned down a little bit, and can the hall lights go up?
Yeah.
Okay, because we want to do it, as Anil said, more of an interactive session, and therefore we would like to see your faces. Okay, so the two of us were chatting last evening about the sessions, and what we said was that let's combine them. And let's make it into a more chatty and interactive session. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's really great. Now we can see all of you. So we said let's make it into a very interactive sort of session. So, instead of that pulpit is there, but instead of giving a keynote, just standing there and speaking for 25 minutes and then 5 minutes of Q&A, we thought we'll reverse it. And we will really invite you people to take part in the various discussions, because ultimately you want answers to things that are in your mind. So unlike a lot of sessions where there is a chat that happens between two people, and people are told that reserve your questions right at the end, and at the end you can ask questions. We want to change it. We want to say that please feel free to interrupt us whenever you want. Okay, just raise your hand and say that, okay, in this area I have the following questions, and let's talk about those. Okay. So those are the sort of ground rules. I will initiate the entire discussion, and then after that let's see how it goes along. So Saurabh, the companies in this room are all either angel funded or they've got Series A funding. However, you know what one has seen is that even after funding, you find that the survival rate of startups is very low. So, you know, 10 out of 100 make it really big, another 20 or 30 do reasonably well, but you know, there are at least about 50, 60 which just fall by the wayside. So, you know, why does that happen? And you know, what are the things that startups should look at?
Sure, and I should say one of the reasons for the ground rules we set is an advice I always give startups to say, listen, don't sit in your office and build what you think is the best product for the world and take 2 years doing that, then go out and find out that that's not what the world wants. So what we want, and I say to them, engage with the market as early as you can. So the idea of saying, please feel free to ask questions is just that. We don't want to sit here and pontificate. So if you have a question on something we're saying, or is there something we've missed, ask, because the idea of this session is not to give you a lot of gyan at 20,000 or 50,000 feet that you can get in books, but really to interact and just share whatever we may have learned in our journeys. So I would say, PG, you know, there are many reasons why startups either fail or limp, are not really able to get far, and it's not one single area. Let me just pick a handful, and then you know, you can see if I missed something. So financing, as all of you know, is very key. That's the fuel on which a startup runs, and by financing I mean both debt and equity. The startups that can raise debt because they have the cash flows and the revenues to be able to sustain interest and debt repayment, and there are startups that shouldn't because they'll get over leveraged. But the key thing on finance again is that you need to have a long-term strategy for raising finance. You've raised the first round, but you need to know that you will continue to need money as you go forward. There has to be a strategy, and we can come back and I'll share a little bit more what I mean with that. The second I would say is, if you want to grow, you have to have the capacity to grow. And there are two parts of it. One is human resources. I mean, do you have the people? Do you have the management bandwidth? Do you have a good enough team? Do the founders span multiple disciplines? Is it a single founder? Middle management? You kind of need the depth and breadth of talent to go from being a 5 crore company to a 100 crore company, or from there to a 1,000 crore company. And you may need skilling, training, all of that. So you have to build that capacity. The third part has to do really with your organizational construct. So PG and I just did a startup, there's two of us, we don't need any organizational construct. We work around the clock, you know, we're passionate, we're driven by stuff, we'll do stuff. But we'll never get with 2 people and 2 crores into a 1,000 crore company. For that, at some point, you need to start thinking about organizational structure. How are you going to divide responsibilities, not only amongst founders, but amongst team? What are the processes for taking a decision? Or you want to become a Lala company where only one guy takes the call? Because when you do that, and if nobody is empowered, then at some stage you will hit a roadblock. You will not grow further. How do you build that structure? You don't want too much bureaucracy, but yet you want some systems and some processes, and the founders may still be okay, but the people whom you recruit who are leading the company at some point, they want clarity. What is their role? What can they do? What they can't do? So you'll need that structure. Then a big focus area, I think, is sales and marketing. Many of us in the tech business, we think just build a great product and the world will be a path to your door. Doesn't happen. We all know that, one of the most successful companies ever created, Microsoft, has never been known to have the best products at any time. People have had better products, but Microsoft is the most successful. Sales and marketing is very key. So I think you have to have a very clear strategy for that. There's a technology issue, both if you have a tech product, what are you going to do with it? How will you keep taking it forward? Because unless there's very strong IP, the fact is once your product is in the market, people know what it is. They can build the same thing. What are you going to do? What's your roadmap? Second part is technology as an enabler. How are you leveraging technology in all the different parts that I'm talking about? Sales, marketing, use of technology in your organizational structure, processes, creating data, analytics, business intelligence on which you can take decisions. How are you leveraging technology? Because it is going to be the differentiator very often between you and your competition on who is taking better quality decisions, who's getting to know information quicker. All of these will make a difference. And the last point that I can think of is really the people issue, and I would say the ego issue. So a lot of companies fall apart. They have everything going, but the egos of the founders, the senior management brings the company down because they can't get along with each other. Somebody thinks that they're doing most of the work and somebody else is getting the credit. All kinds of things happen. And more than one company, some that I know very well, have fallen apart just for this reason when everything else was going for them. So it's not a trivial issue. And many of the things I was saying earlier about org structure, people, team, all the rest of it, are tools to kind of help avoid conflict of egos. So, I mean, I've sort of thought about half a dozen. PG, you may want to add, and I'm sure they may have some thoughts too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very comprehensive list. Perhaps, there is one more thing that I can add to that, and that is that, in the initial phases, you need to flip your business. You need to make changes in the strategy. And very often, founders get stuck to that early formula that they started with and are not able to make that change, and that also is very often a reason for companies not working out. And some of the successful companies, I mean, take the example of Snapdeal. There were, 3 flips that started with a coupon company and then with e-commerce and then after that marketplace. So within about 5 years, there were 3 flips that happened in the strategy, and possibly that was the reason why, when they started, there were other coupon companies which also started, but they are nowhere. But because of the ability to make those changes, that growth has happened. Would somebody like to add to this menu? Reasons for failure? No? Okay, getting the first question out is always the tough one, all right? So therefore, let me put you guys on the block. We have talked about 5 or 6 different aspects that we are going to cover. Simple question, where do we start? Should we start with the money? Should we start with marketing? Should we start with technology? Should we start with structure? Should we start with flipping? Tell us, which is the first area that we should talk about? Yeah. Okay. So we should start with flipping. Any other?
Any other priorities anybody else has? That after flipping, what should we look at?
Yeah.
Sorry?
And structure. Okay.
What is the problem that the startup is trying to solve for the market? What product? Is there a market for the product?
Is there a market for the product?
Is
or
there, I
not?
think fundamental
Okay.
thing is really, is there a market for the product, and if somebody will pay for that, in the medium long term.
Okay.
Okay, let's start with the flipping and then we can figure out. Now this is a tricky thing because there's a lot of literature which says you have a great idea, you're passionate about it, just because people don't think it's good, just because you don't get funding, don't leave it because you may have a winner on your hands, right? And yet I've been to many events like this, and after we finished everything, somebody has got up and said, there's no angel investment in the company, the VCs have no idea what they're doing, you guys don't know what you're talking about because I have this great idea. I've spent the last 1 year, I've talked to 30 different angels and VCs and nobody has written me a check, right? And inevitably I say to them, look, if there's one person or even two people who didn't think it was a great idea, didn't write you a check, they might be wrong, you might be wrong. Because we know lots of companies that didn't get funded initially, but have been great successes. But if you met 30 people, then the odds are that you might be wrong. And so I would say this to you, on flipping and in general is, I think one of the best ways to test things out is engage with the market early. It also addresses a little bit of what I think, really I think you were saying there, Rajneesh, that have you got very passionate about a solution that is looking for a problem to solve rather than solving a problem that exists? And that can happen particularly in tech. We can get very fascinated by some nifty thing that we are doing, but it's not very